matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Hi, Taylor.
Hi.
We are recording our podcast, which is called. This is a horrible intro. Taylor, why don't you take it from here?
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Doomed to Fail. We're the podcast that brings you history's most notorious disasters and epic failures twice a week, every week. I am Taylor, joined by Fars. And it is the morning, which we never record in the morning, but we haven't in a while.
Which is why I'm like a little off right now, I think, because I'm such a creature of habit. It's weird. The older I get, the more desperate in need of habit I become.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Am I going first today?
I think so.
Well, that's a good segue then, because I also wrote down that as one of the other fun, unexpected things that happens as I have been getting older is I get more and more into like conspiracy theories.
Nice.
I don't know what it is. It might, is it just an age thing, you think? Or are you getting more into them?
I don't know. I don't know if I would say more or like there's some that I'm like seeing and I'm like current ones I think are dumb. You know,
Well, give me a current
like
one.
Like Democrats eating babies.
Okay, I'm not talking. There's shades of conspiracy theory.
That's what I mean. That's
okay.
what I mean. Like that stuff is a no, but like I would really love if the moon landing was fake. That'd be fun as shit.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna cover one of my favorite conspiracy theories, and it happened in LA while we were living in LA.
Cool.
And I actually think this was one that you're gonna be with me on. So we'll see. I'm going to talk about a guy. His name is Michael Hastings. Does that ring a bell?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, he's dead. So I'm going to talk about the man himself, the events leading up to his death, the incident, and the pro/anti-conspiracy theories associated with it.
Okay.
Sweet.
I think I'll remember as it comes.
I'm positive you will. This one's a really, really popular one. So Michael Hastings, he was born in 1980, and he kind of grew up with his family, just a really academically inclined kid, class president, played lacrosse, soccer, acted in school plays, just a very involved and engaged individual as a kid. He would find his professional calling as a writer starting in 2002. Is it getting closer to ringing a bell?
No.
Okay, we'll keep going. So this was a great time to pick up writing, especially as a war reporter. And Hastings found his niche by moving to Baghdad during the Iraq War and reporting on day-to-day activities for Newsweek, Gentleman Quarterly, and Rolling Stone. I don't even know what Gentleman Quarterly is. It sounds like a gross magazine. Doesn't it? It just sounds like.
I mean, yeah, no, I don't know what's in. I do not subscribe to Gentleman Quarterly, so I'm not sure what's in it.
Oh, I'm shocked. So it was during his time reporting for the Rolling Stone that he spent time with a very, very, very important individual named Stanley McChrystal, who was a general. So McChrystal was a lifelong, highly decorated member of the U.S. Army. He played an active role in Operation Desert Storm, the Gulf War, the war in Afghanistan, and the Iraq War. So there was like no Middle Eastern war that this guy was not like just all about. In 2009, President Obama was inaugurated, and Stanley McChrystal, then a general, was elevated to commander of all U.S. forces in Afghanistan, all of them. It's like I actually didn't even know that was like I mean, now that I think about it, it's like, of course, there has to be one person whose role that is, but like, so you get to tell the planes and the ships and the people, all of them, what to do. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess someone has to do it.
So Obama obviously took over as president from George W. Bush, who had started 2 wars and obviously was considered a very hawkish president. Obama was not. Obama was kind of considered weak and more of an intellectual than someone who's just like highly aggressive and committed to the military. Do you remember this?
Well, I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I would say it's fair.
I think I still hold that belief.
the criticism is that he is a measured decision maker. That was the
Right.
criticism.
Great, 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 great.
But you know what like,
But I know what you mean.
it's like all these tough guy military guys like, what am I gonna listen to this nerd?
You're like,
It's like
yeah,
one of those
that nerd
deals.
is very smart. But
Um,
yes, yes, yes.
so in 2010, again, this is like a year after Obama was like president. So he's trying to like reshape this kind of like perspective of himself. So in 2010, Michael Hastings was entrenched with McChrystal and his aides for a reporting assignment for Rolling Stones, and he spent a month with him and his inner circle, kind of documenting their thoughts on the war and engagement with the war apparatus and policies and all that stuff.
Hmm.
In June of that year, Rolling Stone would publish Hastings' article, which was entitled Runaway General. Not good.
No.
In it, Hastings would report on how he would report on Stanley McChrystal's disdain for what he called civilian leadership, meaning Barack Obama and Joe Biden.
Hmm.
He and his underlings reinforced the notion that everyone already had that Obama was a weak military leader, that he
Hmm.
didn't understand the military or the realities of war. Again, that he's an intellectual and not just saying blow everything up. I
Right.
think is like the criticism here.
I think so too. That's what it sounds like. Go ahead.
He would also report about taking matters into his own hand, basically bucking the chain of command. So he would just be like, I'm just going to do my own thing. This guy doesn't know what he's doing anyways. Like that was kind of the general vibe and attitude of this article that he wrote. He was also like very disparaging of Biden, and him and his aides would refer to him as "bite me." Like who are you talking about? Bite me, and like it's just it sounds stupid, like childish, but in the grand scheme of things, I guess it was a big deal.
It's really funny.
So once McChrystal knew of the content of the article, he called Biden and offered his apology as well as a written statement saying how sorry he was. Biden would then call Obama to tell him about the apology, which is when Obama actually became aware of the article and requested it. After which he asked McChrystal to come in person to the White House for the next security team meeting, which was usually conducted over video conference as opposed to being in person since he was in Afghanistan at the time. So it was during this meeting that McChrystal tendered his resignation in the way that was like he was fired, right? Like that's just how this works. So you don't
Yeah.
actually. So he tendered his resignation, and that would basically be the end of a military career that spanned 34 years, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Um, a while later, the Defense Department conducted an investigation into the article and basically found no credible corroborating evidence that the things said were actually true.
Huh.
And in some way, shape, or form, the parties would make amends. I mean, not Hastings, but like the other parties would make amends. So Michelle Obama, she would later go on to like right after this report came out, would go on to give McChrystal an assignment as head of an advisory board to support military families. Later on in 2020, McChrystal will go on to endorse Biden for president, kind of, you know, tamping down some of the tensions between them. But like also, like it sounds like he was someone that was like legitimately in, like he sounds like a patriot, like in like a true sense. Like he was like comments he made about Trump were pretty disparaging.
Hmm.
So he was all in on the Biden front. And he kind of put this all to rest.
Hmm.
So Hastings would go on to remain critical of all things Middle Eastern war related. He would go on to profile a U.S. military defector who was disillusioned by the war. He would write pieces critical of Obama and other high level military personnel. It generally sounds like he was a thorn in the side of like the most important people in government and the
Hmm.
military.
Hmm.
So let's get to the culmination of all of this, the incident that we're going to be discussing. So the incident itself occurred on June 18th, 2013, which was almost to the date 3 years after his article that got McChrystal fired was published. On that day at 4:25 a.m., he was driving his car super fast. Some speculate it was between about 60 miles per hour, some speculate 100 miles per hour. Regardless, he was speeding through the Hancock Park area of Los Angeles when he slammed his car into a tree. His cause of death was ruled an accident, and it was due to blunt force trauma that he died. You can
Hmm.
find images of the car online. It went up totally in flames. It's like barely recognizable as a car.
Mm-hmm.
And his body itself was unrecognizable after they got to it. You'll also find pictures if you Google, I think it's just like Michael Hastings' car. You'll also
Mm-hmm.
find pictures of the engine of his car, which was ejected about 30 yards away, which is a little
Wow.
strange. So,
I think
do you remember this now?
no,
We had just moved to LA. This was June of 2013.
I don't know if I remember it as much, but I do feel like isn't your engine, oh my God, I have no idea. Isn't your engine supposed to fall out in some cases on
Yeah,
purpose?
yeah.
I don't know.
The point of it is if you get into a head-on collision, that obviously the front end is going to compact like an accordion, and you don't want the engine to land in the driver's lap. And
Right.
so it's supposed to drop below you. So it's supposed
Got
to go
it.
underneath the car.
Got it. But not like fly, like you said.
It's not supposed to go the other direction.
Got it.
Right. So it's incredibly hard to get a modern day car engine to eject itself.
Yeah, fair.
Like they're really, really not designed to do that.
Hmm.
And I mean, what had to happen for this to occur is that the engine would have to break from its mounts and struts, which are part of the vehicle frame. Like they're one piece. It has to shear from the transmission. Like you look at the picture and like the back end, the housing of it, it ripped all of that. It had to shear all that off. It had to shear off the front axle and every other component that's kind of holding it in place.
Yeah, I know it's wild.
So it's estimated that less than 1% of accidents of car engine is ejected this way, or like it's possible for it to happen. So it's not impossible. It's just highly, highly, highly improbable.
I mean, he was going super fast,
It's true.
too fast, and then like he, if it was the middle of if it was 4 in the morning, then there wasn't any like slowing down, you know?
Yeah, if you think about it, it's like you're going this fast, 100 miles per hour, which means your engine's going 100 miles per hour, and then you stop, and the engine's still going 100 miles per hour. So, like, again, it's not impossible; it's just improbable, is
Yeah.
all. So, what pro conspiracy reasons could there be for this accident? So, an obvious one is someone other than Hastings was driving. So, Richard Clark, who had worked on the intelligence side of the federal government, having served in the State Department as Assistant Secretary of State, and even after retirement, was recruited by Obama in 2013 to form an advisory group to reform the PRISM program after the Snowden leak. He said, quote, there's reason to believe that intelligence agencies for major powers, including the United States, know how to remotely seize control of a car. So if there was a cyber attack on the car, and I'm not saying there was, I think whoever did it would probably get away with it.
Ooh.
This is one of those conspiracy theories that like isn't insane, right?
Was it like any car or like cars that I guess if your car has like the because we talked about this and like I think other times like if there is a nuclear attack that takes down the electric grid, then the cars stop working. Like that kind of or
Wait, is that
how
true? How would that work?
because a lot of cars rely on electricity and rely on like the internet and they're like not just engines anymore, you know?
I mean, I think that'll be true for like electric cars, but
Yeah,
like
but also for like a
my
lot of the computers inside your car.
my Jeep is barely a modern car, and it's a 2021. I think that thing would still work.
Okay, mine wouldn't because mine's very computer heavy.
Oh yeah,
But 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 no, so how so they can control every car or like they have to pick a car
I think you
in this theory.
in this theory, I think, well, you have to pick a car. But I mean, think about it. Like, you have like what one article I read about this was like you have drones now where the guy could be in like New Mexico and is killing people on the other side of the planet. Like, how improbable is it that somebody could install something on somebody's car and then take it over and do something nefarious with it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're definitely gonna just kill each other as drones, and that's gonna be the end of it.
So there is also the reporting from Hastings' book after the article published. It's called The Operator, The Wild and Terrifying Inside Story of America's War in Afghanistan, where he reports being approached by one of McChrystal's aides who said, quote, "We'll hunt you down and kill you if we don't like what you write." And then Hastings, to his credit, would later say that this comment actually didn't bother him because he said, quote, "Whenever I'd been reporting around groups of dudes whose job it was to kill people, one of them would usually mention they were going to kill me." It's like he was just used to this, I guess.
But didn't you say that the stuff that in the Rolling Stone article was not true?
I mean, does it matter if it got McChrystal fired?
Well, I think so. Like, if did is the stuff that Michael Hastings is reporting true?
So they didn't come out and say that it was false. They said they couldn't corroborate it,
Okay.
which is different. But it doesn't
Mhm.
matter because this guy who worked his entire life to become leader of all military forces got fired because of it.
No, totally. But I mean, like, should we believe other things that this guy writes or
It's
says?
he did a lot of investigative journalism,
Hmm.
and it seems like for the most part he's fairly well regarded. Like, I mean, I don't know how much I think of Cenk uh Younger, whatever, however you say his name, the Young Turk,
Hmm.
but like he spoke very highly of Michael Hastings. They're apparently very close to each other. So other journalists also who seem credible also spoke very highly of him. So I'll go off that, I guess.
Okay.
So also the prevailing theory isn't that this was just like related to the McChrystal situation. It was reported that at the time Hastings was also working on another piece that was focused on the CIA director and his agenda against reporters exposing Obama's drone strategy in Afghanistan. So that was like also like a side quest. Apparently, he had reached out to the lawyers at WikiLeaks like hours before he died because he was going through he was going through some shit. I'm gonna get to that in a minute.
Hmm.
LA Weekly also reported that hours before he died, he had asked to borrow a neighbor's car because he thought his own car's computer had been hacked.
Hmm. It sounds like a real rough day for him, his last day.
Yeah.
Like he was like, people are following me.
So that is a huge part of the story. So I'm gonna get to that too. Um, because there's this other strange thing that happened, which was the FBI who said Hastings was not under investigation after he died would flip and say that Al Jazeera did a FOIA request about Michael Hastings after he died, and the FBI showed that he was under active investigation at the time. So his
Hmm.
paranoia was real. Like it was
Yeah.
justified. He thought something was going on, something was amiss. There's so much more to this, but there's the anti-conspiracy side of this too. So Hastings at the time was super agitated, like we were just saying. Um, for really good reason. So by this point, the federal government had made a point about going after journalists who expose secrets. So this is exactly the same time that Edward Snowden had
Hmm.
leaked to the press the PRISM program and had to go into exile. Um, a couple of months earlier from his death is when Julian Assange entered the Ecuadorian embassy and basically stayed there.
I
And
remember that.
that was said to be because he was trying to evade sexual assault charges in Sweden. But the prevailing theory is like that was just like a pretext. They were trying to find any way to get him to be able to shutter down WikiLeaks. And
Hmm.
the prevailing wisdom at the time is this was actually done because they were trying to stop the whistleblowing via WikiLeaks.
Yeah,
So
that totally makes sense.
he Michael Hastings viewed himself in the same vein as like these folks, basically exposing high power government programs and officials, and thought he was being investigated or surveilled. Around this time is when reports came out that the Department of Defense or Department of Justice had seized AP phone records, which his communications would have certainly been a part of. So they were like honing. He just saw the noose tightening around his neck, essentially.
Hmm.
So Michael Hastings' own brother Jonathan flew to be with Michael before the accident because he was going more and more manic and more paranoid. And he recounted after his death that he thought Michael was having a manic episode. And apparently he'd had one of those like 15 years prior. And so there was some precedent for this.
Hmm.
his brother personally thinks that there was nothing suspicious about his death, which is like crazy to me. He would say, well, he knows his brother better than I do, obviously. He would say, quote, I really rule foul play out entirely. I might have been suspicious if I hadn't been with him the day before he died. After all, he definitely was investigating and writing about a lot of sensitive subjects. But based on being with him and talking to people who were worried about him in the weeks leading up to his death and being around him when he was had similar issues in the past, I was pretty much convinced that he wasn't in danger from an outside agency. So the family's
Yeah.
take on this is that he lost his shit and he just lost his shit. And like maybe it was a suicide. We don't know. Like that's the theory.
And I think there's probably stuff that's like you make things more dangerous if you think you're being followed, you know?
Yeah.
Like if you're driving high speed down the street at 4 in the morning and you think you're being followed, you're going to make really weird decisions.
Yeah.
And I mean followed in like a I can't see them, they're following me from like satellites. Like that's crazy, you know? Like so I can see getting so worked up that you make mistakes.
So what do you think? Because the thing I forgot about this story was that everything was happening at the same time. I forgot that like we look at it now as like Trump turning Americans against journalists, but like the government was arresting journalists like for a very, very long time.
I don't really understand what he said that was he is just because he got the one guy fired. Like
Uh,
what
Several things.
and
So he also one of the reason the FBI opened an investigation into him was specifically about an article that he wrote after that, which was about this guy who was a military private, some fucking like just a random dude,
mhm,
who was in Afghanistan and who voluntarily surrendered to the Taliban because he was like, "This war's stupid. America's policies are dumb. I don't want to be doing this anymore." And then he was
mhm,
in prison for a long time. And I totally forgot about this, but this guy was a huge part of Trump's 2016 campaign. Trump was like going out saying what a coward he is, how we should never trade anyone for
oh,
this guy, and like all this
mhm,
stuff. And eventually he was brought back to the US. He was court-martialed, but his the details he would expose brought him into conflict with the federal government. And you never know really what it is. Is it like how he collected the information? Is it what he said
mhm,
about that information? Was it secrets about processes or about, all that whole universe? He was just like generally considered like a huge pain in the ass. And like apparently,
yeah,
like I said, he was working on an article uh, against like calling out the CIA director at the time.
that makes sense.
So so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to
What
think
do you
about this
think?
one. It's tough because there was no indication that he was actually suicidal.
Right, he was just
Freaked out and
freaked out.
saw helicopters where there were no helicopters.
Yeah, I mean, and what is his brother saying? Like he had episodes in the past.
Yeah, he apparently 15 years earlier he also had a manic episode, but he was also like very traumatized. So his first wife, maybe fiance, I can't remember, was also a war correspondent, and she's actually a speechwriter for Condoleezza Rice, which is really cool. But she was also a war correspondent, and she was killed in I think Baghdad.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, so like he saw a lot of death, and like I mean, obviously that stuff imprints on your brain in some way. So yeah, there was probably a lot going on inside his mind,
Yeah,
but I kind of think he was killed.
I mean, I kind of think like he would be, and this is just from my experience watching, being a person who watches movies. I don't know. I think you could scare him enough to do something crazy. You know, like
Maybe that was it.
you don't have to necessarily like track his like car like a spy movie. You can just be like, have a guy in a trench coat follow him around for an hour, and he's gonna be like, "Oh my God,"
Yeah.
what was he doing awake that late? Was he drinking?
Uh,
Was
that
he
I
going
d-
somewhere? Like,
no.
why
So
are you doing that?
that night he was on a panel somewhere. I couldn't figure out where he was trying to go to or what he was trying to do.
Yeah, because that's like a weird time to be awake.
Yeah.
Like what is he doing? So I feel like if I feel like he was scared.
He was definitely
right,
scared.
rightfully so in many ways. And like, I don't know if like he just thought that they could do stuff that they couldn't do and then got like overwhelmed, or they did do the thing or whatever. But I think it'd be easy to scare him into thinking that they were doing more than they were doing, you know?
And Richard Clark did say, if they did this, nobody will ever find out.
Yeah,
It's like, dude, it's so creepy. Like, if someone wants to get you, like, if the federal government wants to get you, like,
they can get you.
they can get you.
Yeah.
It's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
But that's my fun little story. It has nothing to do with conspiracies about pizza restaurants or adrenochromes or
That's
um
fine.
but Taylor, then again, like a lot of like pedophile stuff turn out to be fucking true. like
Totally, but not like the way that
not the way that yeah, okay, yeah,
they
not
said
that
that
way.
it was,
But the whole like
you know.
island of like sex offender, like
Oh yeah, no, that
I'm I'm
exists.
I'm starting to think that like conspiracy theories they start with like a kernel of truth and then the internet goes like insane with it, but like it's kind of it could be true. Like
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about another good one. I mean,
I
even the
feel
moon landing one you mentioned, like they're like, no, we went to the moon. It's just like we lost the footage and we refilmed the footage. Like that seems plausible. Like that doesn't seem that crazy. Saying we
I th
didn't go to the moon or saying the earth is flat, that's kind of crazy.
yeah, saying the earth is flat is crazy. Like,
But
calm
like
down.
saying we lost footage, that's not crazy.
And it was like the 60s, like it all had to be on physical stuff,
Yeah.
you know? Um, that's funny.
See, I'm
But
I'm
like,
baiting you. I'm bringing you over to the conspiracy side.
no, I mean, no, that the moon landing is one of my favorites. I love that they might do that.
That's all I got.
It's kind of fun. Yeah, let us know what your favorite conspiracy theories are.
There's so many good ones. I mean, the Gulf of Tonkin, like that was I forgot that one exactly. It was definitely LBJ. It had to do with the escalation of war in Vietnam about like an attack that occurred on one of our ships in that
Hmm.
area. And it was like, no, it was all staged. It was all fake. Like this, it literally happens. Like,
Totally. Totally.
but like saying
Yeah.
9/11 was like the government doing it, that's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And all the like the towers can't steel can't melt or whatever. Like nobody knows what happens when two like there's some crazy. I'm not over the edge yet. Maybe like in 10
No,
years I'll be over the edge, but like right now I'm more like in the fun, non-harmful conspiracy theories.
totally. I mean, like, so okay, so now I'm like, wait, I'm waking up. Some of them that I'm thinking of like I even though you talked about the White Star Line and the ships, and I know things, every time I see a picture that tells me that the Titanic might be the
Olympic.
OC, the Olympic, I'm like, I think it's the Olympic.
Yeah,
Not
it
that
could
even
be.
it doesn't even matter, but I usually get like I get excited about like, oh my God, maybe it was the Olympic the whole time. Like, who cares? But like,
Yeah.
I'll always look at those pictures and be like, the windows are this far apart and they're square and they're this and that's
I guess that's the fun ones are the ones where the consequences aren't that terrible. I mean, Gulf of Tonkin was pretty bad. Or
I
like
mean,
the JFK thing, like the fact that the most credible evidence is that the Secret Service shot him in the back of the head by accident and they had to hide it.
yes.
Like, where's his brain? Why did nobody keep his brain? It's because the bullet fragment would have matched up with the Secret Service's rifle and not Oswald's. Like, that's
And I'm totally that one I believe. But also that happened in addition to Oswald. You know what I mean?
well,
So like
that's what
that
I'm
stuff
saying.
is crazy. Yeah.
That's why it's kind of harmless because to them, they're like, listen, like he put
Hmm.
into play the actions that resulted in the president getting shot. If Oswald hadn't fired the first shot that missed, the
Right.
Secret Service wouldn't have
That guy
rifled their
wouldn't have
gun
been
and flubbed it and shot him in
hmm
the head. So like they're like, hey, like technically, like by order of operations, he started all this. So
Yeah.
fuck it, just burn the brain. It's crazy. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine being the guy that tells someone like, hey, here's the president's brain, go fucking burn it. Nuts.
Nuts. Ew. What are you gonna do with it? Remember
I don't
in
know.
wait, have you seen Young Frankenstein?
Yeah.
Where he gets a brain, he's like, it's Abby normal.
I I saw the last one I saw that was a synesthesia.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was really fun.
That sounds really nice. I like that.
But yeah, write to us with your favorite conspiracy theories. Like, I don't want
Yeah,
to hear the crazy ones. Like, let's
exactly.
be nice people. Like, let's not.
Like, what are the fun ones? You know, like, I don't know.
Okay, Hollywood, I think, is full of sex offenders. I think that
Yes,
part is true. Like,
I think that part is true as well, which is gross and terrible. But yeah, no, I think that that's true. Like all the P. Diddy stuff, I keep seeing things that are like, when everything comes to light, it's gonna be wild, you
so
know?
I was just talking about this because I remembered when Danny Masterson, remember the
Hmm
70s
hmm
show guy, when he got I think he got like a life sentence for all the sexual assaults that he did.
He
And
did,
then Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis like ended up writing to the judge saying like, yes, he did all this horrible stuff,
but he's a
but
good
he's
dad.
kind of a cool guy.
Yeah.
And then they had to like do like a revision of that. They had to be recorded, like saying, "Oh, we take it this back. We're so sorry," and all that. And now they're like talking about how Ashton Kutcher probably was at these like parties, and it's like,
I
man, it's gonna be bad for a lot of people.
think the best thing that came out of that Danny Masterson case is not having to hear from Ashton Kutcher anymore. I'm glad he just like went away for a little bit.
I don't know. Punked was pretty good.
I mean, sure, of its time.
Did we start the whole obsession with trucker hats because of Ashton Kutcher?
I don't know. No, there's actually a documentary that I've not seen about Von Dutch and how they like couldn't believe how popular they got.
Well, wasn't that because of Ashton? Ashton, I know my first name only.
Ew. If you do, then I'm worried.
Then it's a problem. That's the end of the podcast. Um,
Um,
Anyways,
fun.
do you have any listener mail or
Um, oh yes, I do. Nadine wrote in to tell us that 99% Invisible has a series on the Power Broker where
they
they,
do? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So if anyone wants to listen along as you try to read the Power Broker this year, please do.
That is a very efficient way to do it. And the way they what's his name? Roman Mars, is that it? Yeah, he's really good. He's a good narrator. Um,
I that reminds me. Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone. When the internet first started, this was like 20 years ago at my job, I remember I was so bored and I would watch the X-Files all day long and people were like, Taylor's trying to get fired. And I'm like, nothing. But anyway, I would also watch YouTube videos and there was one YouTube video that was just a guy and he would read Twilight, but he wouldn't read it out loud. He would read it, he would like laugh and then he'd summarize it for you. And it was so funny because he would just like be reading it and then he would just be like laughing and then just kind of tell you what happened. And it was just delightful.
what the books, the vampire books?
Yeah, he wasn't reading it to you. He was reading it, laughing at it, and then telling you what happened and laughing. It was so funny.
There's a lot of fun content ideas out there.
Yeah,
That's a good one. Sweet. That's all I got, Taylor. If you're good, we can go ahead and wrap and rejoin y'all later on this week.
sounds good. Find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. Doomed to fail.
Sweet. Thanks all.
Bye.